back. Today I'm going to be talking about some tips for practicing witchcraft on a budget. I've got a few tips here that I hope you will find helpful regardless of if you are a beginner or more advanced. I know witchcraft can become expensive with all the fancy tools and supplies out there, but it really doesn't have to be, and I'm hoping these tips will be helpful to you. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a comment down below, and you can turn on the bell notification to get notified when I post new videos. First tip's a pretty obvious one, but use what you already have at home. I know lots of people have herbs in their kitchen they use for cooking that you can use in your craft. You can use tea light, votive candles, birthday candles. Those are great. Birthday candles are great for real just little quick spells. You can use things like a wine glass for a chalice, a scarf as an altar cloth. You can do magic with certain things like a piece of yarn or a string can be used for knot magic, all kinds of cool stuff like that. You can also go out in nature and find things such as sticks that you could use to make a wand, seashells, feathers, pine cones, pretty stones, all kinds of cool stuff. The only thing I will say is don't ever harvest plants and stuff in nature that, one, you either aren't 100% sure what they are, if you're not absolutely positive you're identifying them correctly, don't ever eat them or use them, because there's a lot of plants that are two different things and they look very, very similar, but one of them will be toxic. And I also wouldn't collect anything that's too close to a road or anything, because it could have been, stuff can be sprayed by chemicals, but also just the car exhaust and all that, soaking into the soil and into the plants, that's not really good. So, yeah, I will just give a little cautionary warning about that. So like I said, just kind of looking around your house for things and seeing things with their new perspective to see what you can use is great. But if you do want to buy something, first, before going to a new store, look at thrift stores, antique stores, junk stores, all those kind of shops. You can often find a lot of great stuff. Sometimes there are some that will sell stuff for more expensive, but there's a lot of places where even within the same store, there might be stuff that's less expensive, but great quality and perfect to use. I've bought a lot of stuff from places like that. I did a haul not too long ago when I went to some of the junk and antique stores when I was visiting my grandmother, and I found a lot of cool stuff. If you really do want to go somewhere new, there's places like the dollar store. There's different dollar stores. I don't know. I don't have one where I live, but I have been to ones, and I've seen they usually have lots of candles. They usually have jars and vases, stuff like that. They usually have a small craft section that you could probably find things. I've seen some people buy those little jars that you could use as a really tiny spell jar, stuff like that. So dollar stores can be a good place as well. Another thing that's relatively simple and very easily accessible is to use color magic. Color magic is easy because color is all around us. You can easily choose an intention for the day and dress in those colors to bring in that intention. Simply choose a stone instead of by the type of correspondences necessarily for that type of stone. Instead of choosing specifically looking for a tiger's eye or whatever, you could just look for a brown stone in general or whatever color. You can also use colored pens and markers to write and draw. You can use colored nail polish, choose colored eyeshadows and makeup, all kinds of cool stuff you can do with color magic. You can also enchant items for different purposes. Some things that I've done this with are I've enchanted my soap to cleanse away negativity when I'm in the shower. You could do your makeup to maybe bring self-confidence and beauty. You could maybe do perfume for something with a scent. Let's see, sorry, I have some notes for this. You could do food and drinks to bring you health, all kinds of stuff. You can pretty much enchant anything. Another thing that kind of goes along with this is you can get just a plain clear quartz crystal and you can program it to do whatever intention you want. Instead of having 1,000 different stones, each with their own purpose, you can just have a piece of clear quartz, program it with your intent, use it for that intent, and then when you're finished, cleanse it, and you could start over basically. Cooking or baking, you can add your intention as well as using specific ingredients with specific correspondences. You can easily add your intention to anything you're making. And one thing I always like to do is add my intent, and to bring something in, I stir in a clockwise direction, and to like push something away, get rid of it, go in a counterclockwise direction. You can also do something I like to do is use in-season herbs and produce as much as I can. I have a garden, and so I love growing my own. And so to me, eating within seasons is very witchy, just because you're not like going against nature to get things that aren't in season. An example of something I've done when cooking or, baking is when making a pie, you can put in the bottom pie crust, and before you bake it, you could draw a symbol into the bottom, like just lightly draw a symbol. You don't have to like full on carve it, but just like lightly press it in there. And then you'll have that symbol, and you put in the pie filling and the top crust, or if there's not a top crust, whatever. And the symbol will be there doing its job, but it's very inconspicuous because no one will ever know it's there. So that's something I like to incorporate because my family's not pagan or witchy at all, so I don't want to like be carving a big symbol on the top or something where they would see it and be like, what the heck is this, So that's kind of a good inconspicuous way to add your magic into your cooking. Speaking of gardening, you can take up gardening and grow your own herbs, flowers, produce, and you can use that in your spell work as well as kitchen witchery. I love having my organic garden and growing all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. I like getting to spend time in nature, and it's kind of, obviously the growing the stuff is a lot of fun, and so the harvesting is a great reward, but it's sort of like a bonus because of everything I get out of just the actual gardening experience itself. So this is one thing that up front will cost some money. Like you would have to buy seeds, for example, but like say a packet of 30 tomato seeds, might cost $3, maybe $4, depending on where you get it. But you get 30 seeds, that equals 30 tomato plants. Each tomato plant is going to produce a bunch of tomatoes. So it's very cost efficient, I guess, in the long run. Yes, you have to pay up front to get the seeds, but the number of seeds versus how much you can grow is really, really worth how much the seeds cost. And if, like the tomato example, if like you don't need or have room for 30 tomato plants, you can always save the seeds for next year, or you can swap your extra seeds with a friend. So like you might have tomatoes, they might have cucumbers, and you're like, okay, well, let's swap half and half. And then you've only paid for one seed packet, but now you have 2 types of seeds. So that's a great thing to do. Also, a lot of libraries, especially in bigger towns and cities, like regular book libraries, will have a seed library as well, where it basically works just like the regular library. You can come and like check out seeds, which basically means you just like write your name down and you like take out seeds, and you don't have to give them back because obviously if you've grown them, you can't give them back. But like you plant them, and the whole idea is that at the end of the year, you give back any extra seeds you have back to the library. Instead of like, checking out, returning the same book, you would check out the seeds and then try to, if you're able to, return some type of seeds at the end of the season. And those are really cool. You can also learn to forage locally in your area. This is something that can be done. There's lots of resources out there. You'll have to find one that works with your specific location. Because, you know, like a book on Texas native plants that I might read here in Texas isn't going to help somebody, you know, in somewhere else. So along with this though is, again, like I said earlier, be absolutely positive you know what it is when you're identifying something. Be sure you're identifying it correctly. And I see a lot of people post like online, like in Facebook groups and stuff. I use Facebook basically just for the groups function. And I see people posting on there sometimes stuff like they'll take a picture of something they find outside and they'll tell people like ask people, what is this? You know, identify this for me and see if I can eat it. And I would not ever take advice like that, because like from random strangers on the internet, because they could just be wrong. It's hard to identify things in photos and just, you know, they could be wrong, or heaven forbid somebody's like trying to be malicious and purposely giving you an incorrect identification. Let's hope not, but you never know, right? So when you are foraging, it's best to, when you find an area of something, never take more than 1/4 to 1/3 of the total of everything that's there, because you want to leave some for nature, for the animals and the insects and all that to have, and you need to have enough left for it to regrow. You don't want to, you know, take everything and like wipe it out from the area. So that's always something to keep in mind as well. And personally, if I don't do this a lot, but there is some things I know what they are, a few things. So if I'm ever gonna wild forage, I like to take some type of offering, usually like water, and leave it to say thank you. Oh, one other thing I will mention is, if you are like wild foraging, make sure it's actually like a wild place. Like, don't go digging up somebody's yard. You know, don't go up to someone's front yard and start like picking all their flowers or whatever. That's just rude. And I've seen that happen, and I would be very upset if someone did that, you know, in my garden. So be considerate of others. Tip number 8 is to check out books from the library. Libraries will often have a good selection, and some libraries will have a bigger or better selection than others, but even if they don't have a big like actual pagan-y, Wiccan, witchcraft section, you can often find books that aren't necessarily specifically geared toward that, but that can be incorporated into your practice. For example, like a general astrology book or a general herb book. Those might not be, you know, geared toward witchcraft or paganism, but you can certainly learn a lot of that stuff and include it in your craft. Some libraries have this thing called an interlibrary loan. I know this is something that's done in the US. I don't know about other countries, but an interlibrary loan is basically if there's a book you want, but your library doesn't have it, they can contact another library that does, and that library will basically like ship it to them. You can check it out, give it back, and then when they're done and you give it back to them, they will ship it back to the original library it came from. So you can ask your library if they do that. There's also apps you can use. I know there's like a Kindle app, like for your iPad or iPhone if you don't have an actual Kindle, where that's like where you can read digital books. There's also some that you can do, I don't remember what it's called, but there's one where you can basically check, where it's like Kindle, but instead of buying the books digitally, you check them out like through the library. And there's also stuff like that for audiobooks, like Audible, where you can buy them, or there's that same library one. You can check out audiobooks as well. One thing I definitely do not recommend is don't ever like download random book PDFs off the internet, because you don't, well, besides like you don't want to be pirating and like downloading stuff illegally. That's stealing from the author, and the author ends up, you know, having put all this work into writing a book and everything, and then you're just stealing it and they don't get any money or anything for it, for their work, which is just not good. Number 10, and the last one for today, is to do some DIYs and get into crafting. There's things that are more simple, like finding a branch outside and turning it into a wand. And then there's things where you can really learn and hone your skills, such as candle making, book binding. You could get into making soaps, learn to sew so you can make sachets and stuff like that. Altar cloths. I sewed my own altar cloths. I just bought the fabric and sewed them together and made them so they're double-sided. And there's all kinds of stuff like that you can learn and incorporate in. I will say, in regards to candle making and soap making, those are things that you definitely need to be, like, definitely do your research and do it well and know what you're doing, because there's lots of practices out there that aren't safe that people do anyway and really shouldn't be. And when it comes to stuff like that, you definitely want to be safe. You don't want to accidentally burn your house down or make a soap that's going to end up giving you a chemical burn or something. But I'll try to remember to include the links to, or not the links, but the names of a couple different candle and soap making books that I've learned from that know what they're talking about and can be helpful if you'd like to look into that. So there's lots of cool DIYs you can do, and not only can you incorporate them into your craft, but if you practice them and get good at them, you could even sell the stuff you make. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe and hit the like button. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you'd like, I could make a part 2 to this video and share some more tips I have. Just let me know. Okay, bye. Blessed be.